Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of JakesTake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're listening to us today on audio, please download this episode and more episodes. Now, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. I'm very excited to welcome our latest guest today. He is an award-winning author. He's appeared in over 200 plus media projects throughout the media. He teaches at the UCLA Extension Writers Program, and his latest book is called The Lighting People Play. So please help me welcome Tim Cummings to the podcast.
Hi, Jake. How's it going?
It's going good, Tim. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
All right, so let's get started. So, when did you get interested in writing, and how did that passion evolve and desire to pursue a career in our field, the media industry?
This is probably going to sound a little hooey, but as a child, a young child, meaning before even nursery school, I have this very vivid memory of sitting in my backyard. I grew up in Port Jefferson, Long Island, New York. And I had a lot of elder siblings. I'm the youngest of six. And I used to take their classic composition marble notebooks that they had and sit at this picnic table in our backyard. And I would write in these notebooks, but I didn't know how to write. I couldn't form sentences, but I would do these like scribbles all the way across the pages and fill in these notebooks as if I was writing stories. So I don't know if that came through from a past life or what that was, but I was enamored of storytelling and the act of writing before I could even do it. So that's a very compelling and intriguing, mysterious part of my life. And from there, I don't know, man, I read like a maniac when I was a kid. I read everything you could read in the kids section of the library. All the Beverly Cleary books, all the Choose Your Own Adventure books. I was obsessed with books that were for a little bit older kids like Watership Down and Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. I read all the books by this author named Ruth Chu, who wrote these incredible stories for kids about witches that were just living in neighborhoods around America. And they would always meet these children and take them to these strange portals, like in a tree in a park, and then there was a coven underneath the ground. Just like incredible, incredible stories. And I just loved reading and storytelling. And then when I was 11 years old, I got into theater, and that really took everything to the next level. I started acting professionally maybe a year later and have done that for 40 years. In 2016, I decided to go back to school to get my master's in writing. I just wanted to evolve as an artist and a storyteller and focus on it. You know, I was so distracted from being an actor. It really does take up so much of your life, especially if you do theater. So this was an opportunity for me to kind of step off the stage, and I worked really hard for 3 years in grad school, and you know, everything happened very quickly. As soon as I got out, I got an agent, I got a book deal, and that's just been the journey that I've been on since that time.
It sounds you've been on a phenomenal journey, and I've been on that journey too, very similar because I remember like creating lists of like a dream storylines I would give for Batman or for
Yeah.
Power Rangers,
Yes.
and like
Yeah.
like for me it was like reading for the kids like the Magic School Buses and yeah, Choose Your Own Adventures, but also the Bailey School Kids books
Oh my God. Yeah.
were another one of a major reading stuff, and same with Junie B. Jones and Sideways Stories from
Yeah.
Wayside School. Those were incredible books for me, and that's why. And then all along came Harry Potter, and then all of a sudden,
Oh yeah.
my reading was saved, so I became
Yeah.
an avid reader. So, and then also on top of that, theater kid from sixth grade to 12th grade.
Get out. Amazing. What kind
Yep,
of theater did you do?
musicals particularly were my favorites. I
Nice.
loved I had supporting roles like in Fiddler on the like for middle school was Fiddler on the Roof, Hello Dolly, Oklahoma. Then high school was A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum,
Oh, nice.
Oliver, and then the most interesting musical of them all, Working, where it had like a monologue as like a tie salesman.
Oh, yeah. That's a great musical. Yeah.
And then also the last one I remember, and also the last one I did was in a musical beside a repertory theater class. I got to do I got to do Twelfth Night where I got to play Sir Andrew.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah. So you have a lot of experience on the stage.
Yeah, I love it, but the thing is, professionally, I'm more of a storyteller myself, or like a journalist, and like so that's my path.
Yeah, you found your niche. That's amazing. But I mean,
Absolutely.
theater, whether it's something that you pursue professionally or if it's a springboard for something else in your life, I've always said it should be required for every single person in this country to study from a young age. The way we study science and math and English, theater makes you so present. It makes you so collaborative. It makes you so smart. It makes you have to get up in front of people. I mean, there's absolutely nothing bad about studying theater or doing theater. So it's always baffled me that it has this sort of a bad rap. Because I remember when I started doing it, I got made fun of for it. And that egged me on because for me, it was this like an act of protest. It was an act of rebellion against all of the kids who were bullying me. It does have
Depending
a
on.
strange power.
Mhm. Absolutely. And the thing is, I gotta say this, I rather was, I tell people all the time, I wasn't on the stage was my arena.
Yes, it's
And the
powerful.
choir concerts were my basketball games.
Yes, I love that. Choir concerts were my basketball games. That's pretty powerful because I don't know about you, but I didn't step foot on a basketball court.
Neither did I.
Not the place for me growing up. Yeah, so I love that. Yep, it has a strange mystical power, and I've always loved whether it's something that I've written or as a vessel to interpret somebody else's words, somebody else's idea, somebody else's world. It's quite beautiful. I think the industry part of it is a little bit trickier, but the art form itself is really beautiful and really powerful, and I'll always stand by it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about the authors that inspired you because I could go on and on. And I'll list after you the people that the writers that inspired me. But who were the authors that inspired you to go pursue your storytelling, and also how did they made an impact on your craft?
I mean, when I was a kid, I read Watership Down and I really loved that book. And then I read all of Richard Adams' books subsequent to that, even though at that age I didn't really understand because a lot of his stuff is for adults, but I have gone back at various times in my life to read his stuff. I actually, back there on my epic bookcase, I have first edition hardcovers of all of his work. So he was a big one for me growing up. Mildred Taylor was a big one for me. I really love Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and her and the subsequent sequels. Um, a lot of kids authors. Obviously, I teach that for UCLA, so I always have my pulse on the finger of what are the more current books being written for kids, as well as the classics from middle of the century forward. Um, Philip Pullman was a really big one for me. He wrote the His Dark Materials books, Golden Compass, Subtle Knife, and Amber Spyglass, and now the sequels. I remember reading one of his books in the early aughts when I was living in New York City, right around the time that the Twin Towers went down, and my whole life got really disturbed from that. Those books really went in a very emotional, powerful, psychological way, and I think um, wanting to do that, be that, live in that energy, eventually prompted me to go back to school. Certainly, eventually. So yeah, I mean, I love the Harry Potter books too. I can't say that I have warm and fuzzy feelings about J.K. Rowling as of late. Um, but her stories were really instrumental to an entire generation for reading and world building. So I really love those books. Um, and I tend to read sort of all over the place. Like I'll read a middle grade, and then I'll read a classic YA, and then I'll read a memoir, and then I'll read a nonfiction, and then I'll read a classic. For instance, I just finished The Secret Garden. I had never read it. I don't know how it passed me by that I never read The Secret Garden, but I read it, and that was really immense. What a powerful story, beautiful story. So dark and sad, but then it becomes the most sort of beautiful, redemptive thing. So I'm reading some classics. So I kind of keep it, I try to stay very versatile in what I'm reading and why. Obviously, some of it I have to do for work, for teaching, and then the rest of it is for pleasure. And then also going back and reading all the books that I love, because I think it's important for you to talk intelligently about the books that you love and that have inspired you. And you learn more about them as you grow older and have more life experience and go back and revisit them. Do you find that?
I do. And yeah, I agree with you a lot. I gotta say, I gotta give a big shout out to Marsha T. Jones and Debbie Dady, who were the co-authors of the Bailey School Kids, one of my all-time favorites. And yes, despite J.K. Rowling being a polarizing figure, I credit her for giving me my love of reading back
Yeah.
and for creating the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, one of my all-time
Yeah.
favorite literacy worlds. But it's
Yeah.
not, and also I got to give shout outs to James Patterson and Dan Brown, whose
Amazing.
page turners just are a
Yeah.
thrill seeking. And but however, I cannot forget one certain medium which has been a huge part of my life, and I'm talking about comics. I'm talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
the stories that Bill Finger wrote. I'm talking about the great Marv Wolfman, the world building that Jeff Johns did for and Grant Morrison and Mark Wade and Greg Wooka, Gail Simone, Brian Michael Bendis, Ed Brubaker. I could go
Yeah.
on, Chris Claremont. I could go on, and of course the one and only Stan Lee, the great Blue Miss
Oh, yeah.
Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Those create and currently Scott Snyder and Josh Williamson and James Tynion IV. Those creators have played a masterful role in me when it came to devouring the DC and Marvel universes.
Yeah. Extraordinary. You must be a very visual thinker because that's really deeply visual stuff. I love that.
Oh yeah, the storylines like I've been a Batman fan since I was 5 years old. So like from the Paul Dini Bruce Timm animation series to the storylines like Jeb Loeb's iconic and Jim Lee's iconic Hush, the controversial Judd Winnick's Return of Jason Todd and Under the Red Hood, and of
Yeah.
course Grant Morrison's Batman saga and Scott Steiner Greg Capullo's new Batman 52 sagas. Those stay with me.
It's amazing the way you come across things like that that you fall in love with, and they have such an impact on your life. I'm so grateful for that. I love when my mind explodes over things like that. Whether it's a book that I find that I read that I love, the way it stays with me, or a graphic novel. I specifically have been really appreciative of incredible modern animation of classic books, graphic novels of classic books. I saw a Wizard of Oz one that I thought, it's so cool how they're doing this. I saw Lord of the Flies one. It was so cool to bring them to a younger generation through visual storytelling and in a medium that younger generations relate to immediately because of the way that it's drawn and how much more visual younger generations are because of the internet and the phones and social media and the way that the forms of storytelling are evolving. So
I
I'm
agree. I agree. I gotta give a special shout out to Chris Colfer because his Land of Stories
yeah,
has definitely ignited the previous generation.
yeah, and also an actor, a really great Broadway performer. So I love him. Good on him.
Absolutely. But we're here not talking about all the great writers that we have mentioned and all the great creators that we mentioned. We're here to talk about you, Tim. So let's get back to our conversation. So what can you describe your writing process to my audience?
My writing process is blessed by the fact that I am an intensely early riser. I always have been since I was a little kid. I just don't require a ton of sleep. I just don't. And I wake up early, and it's a time of the day where my mind is free and empty. I'm not thinking or worrying about anything. And I come down here. This is my office in my house, and I come down here and I do my writing. So I always have a couple of different balls in the air, whether I'm working on a short story or a novel in verse or a long form novel. Um, and I have a lot of ideas coming at me all the time. I try to just write them down. If I start writing one of them and it goes somewhere, I know that it's worth pursuing. Some of them kind of stop after a few pages. So it's a very prismatic process. I don't want to nail it down as anything like scientific or routine because I feel like I'm having a relationship with my muse. I love the idea in the old days when writers and artists would have a communion with their muse, which was a spirit that sort of lived in the wall and spoke with them. I like to keep things very mercurial as far as being an artist because I feel like if you try to trap it, or like, throw a lasso around the moon and pull it down, it won't shine. So getting up early, being disciplined in writing, also reading. I read a lot, and reading is writing. You have to read, you have to understand other voices, other styles, what's going on there in terms of storytelling, structure. So I consider the time that I take reading books as writing time as well. And I go on a lot of retreats. I love retreats because retreats, you get to go away to a lake, to a mountain, to the desert, and no distractions, no interruptions. And you're writing for anywhere from, 5 to 10 to 15 days with a bunch of other writers. You meet them, you make new friends, you workshop your work. So I'm a big believer in retreats, and I go on several of them a year. If sometimes they're cost prohibitive, but I do like to do that. Um, and to be honest, teaching and running writing workshops takes some time away from my writing, but I do love uh, guiding people. I do love building community with other writers. So again, I consider that part of the writing process.
Awesome. So we got to talk about your book. So, for example, you wrote the award-winning book, Alice the Cat. This book, oh, there's Alice the Cat right over there. So this book tackles grief, love, and the supernatural. So, what were some of the lessons you learned about these topics throughout your writing process?
Alice the Cat was a good book for me to cut my teeth on. I wrote it in grad school. I wrote it feeling two things simultaneously. One was the freedom to explore what I wanted to explore because I really wanted to tell this particular story. And the other one being because I have a kind of a rebellious nature, and middle grade and young adult literature can be a little hemmed in as far as their dictates on what you can and cannot include. I was trying to push the envelope a little bit. So I think I wrote it with um, some some freedom and some rebellion. But that book is based on something that actually happened to me in real life, which was I lost my mother when I was a teenager, and um, we had this cat that she absolutely loved. It was her cat, and she was very regal and she was very beautiful. She was also the family cat. But in the wake of my mom's death, the cat started acting very strangely, including um, darting out into the street when cars came by, as if she was trying to end her own life. And then the cat disappeared, and I never knew what happened. I don't know if she succeeded in getting run over. I don't know if my dad took her to be put to sleep. I don't know if she just walked into the woods to die. Animals do a lot of strange things when they are sick or sad. And I buried this memory for a very, very long time, for decades, because it was too painful. And when I was in grad school, one day I was sitting out in the courtyard having lunch, and the question just popped up in front of me. What happened to the cat? And I thought, oh no, 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 no. I'm not going there. I can't go there. And lo and behold, I think I went back to the hotel that night because I was doing a residency and I was staying in a hotel. And I wrote that first sentence of what became this book. So the exegesis of that novel was based on something that really happened to me that I wanted to explore. But the characters and the plot and all that stuff, um, that was all complete fiction. That was all imagination. That was all, I think, those characters coming in and using me almost as like a medium to tell their story. So I love it. It's fecund and wild and really powerful and really emotional and also really quirky and really goofy. It has a lot of grief. It has a lot of darkness, but also it's ridiculous as well. And I was happy that a lot of people who read it got a lot from it, you know?
And which is amazing because the thing is that those stories and like that only that not just with not just with readers but also your peers as well in the professional organization. So what went through your mind when you like say congratulations, your award, Alice the Cat won this award and Alice the Cat is now a finalist for this award?
I just felt seen. I felt seen, you know? I mean, it's not why you do it. I've won a lot of awards as a writer. I've won a lot of awards as an actor. And it's not why you do it, but you do feel seen and you feel a little like a little bit more encouragement that you're on the right path. And I think that that's important because sometimes this work can feel a little maddening with the amount of people who are doing it and the competitive nature that they kind of throw on us about it, and how sometimes you can feel like, don't look at me if you're not number one. Um, I've tried my whole life to let go of a lot of that pressure and not live in a place of ultra competitiveness, healthy competitiveness. Obviously, that's important. But I think being a storyteller in whatever capacity and putting your stuff out there in whatever way is the grand award, no matter if you win an Oscar or a Pulitzer or a Newbery or whatever, right? A Grammy, you know, you're brave enough to be an artist and put your stuff out into the world and let people receive it and or judge it, then you've already won all the awards in my book. Because it's
It,
hard to do and it's beautiful when you do it and put it out there. It's an
uh,
act of protest, I think.
mhm. And absolutely, because I'm getting ready as we're speaking right now. I had, for those of you who have been following me on social media, I won an award from the CV Awards, the American Business Award. It's the silver in their best interview talk show category. So this is the first time in 6 years that I've been. Oh, thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate it. Like there's a lot of hearts and emojis
Yay!
coming across my screen right now. And then also, I'm in the beginning, the staging process of my 15th anniversary celebration. That's beginning next year because 2011 marks the first time I ever blogged, and that has led it to where we are today.
That's incredible. See, and your channel keeps growing and you just keep you go and you grow. So
Absolutely.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And guys, there'll be more to come on the 15th anniversary celebration. It's going to be year long, but however, we got to get back to our conversation right now because we have to talk about the reason why you're here, the Lightning People play. So, how is this book similar and different to Alice? And can you describe this book to my audience?
So this is a book about a bunch of really brilliant theater kids who put up a play to raise money for a seizure alert dog because the protagonist's younger brother has been diagnosed with epilepsy and their play opens a portal.
Mm,
That's that's your hook. Um, it takes place in the same fictional town I created for Alice the Cat, which is called Weirville. When I was in grad school and I was writing Alice the Cat, I kept asking the question like, how come we don't have any new cities? Like seriously, America has no new cities, right? It's kind of weird. And I wanted to create one. I wanted to create a small one, you know, like Pittsburgh or St. Louis or like a small city, but also make it kind of like I live in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is a vast, endless megalopolis that is half a city and half a suburb. all over the place. I wanted to create half a city, half a suburb in a small little area. So I created Weirville. This book also takes place in Weirville. Um, and um, so yeah, the kids live in Weirville, and there's some crossover from Alice the Cat. There's a character in Alice the Cat who shows up in this book as well. It's not a sequel, but it's sort of like a multiverse, I guess you'd call
And
it.
who knows? It could be a weird, the Weirville. You could be building a Weirville multiverse as we speak.
That would be amazing, honestly. But I obviously we talked about this. I was a theater kid. I've been a theater kid my entire life. Um, but also I grew up with a severely epileptic brother. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. He was killed from one of his seizures. And decades later, I decided to write a story that rewrote his fate, as it were, something more hopeful than what we had to deal with. Epilepsy is really difficult, and I shared a room with him growing up, and he would have these seizures in the middle of the night, and it was absolutely terrifying. And a lot of weird stuff happened, I have to say, that I think was buried deep in my subconscious for all of these years. And when I started writing this book, it made itself known to me in very mysterious ways, which is where the magical realism of this book comes in. It's stuff that happened that I explored but was not didactic about in any way. So there's this magic, there's this weird stuff that happens, but I don't know what it is, and so I don't explain it. I leave it up to the reader to kind of make their own decision about what it is. Um, so that was why I wrote this book. I was thinking for a long time, like, how can I mash these two things together? Like, I've been a theater kid. I want to write about theater. How do I do that? How do I also write about epilepsy? You know? And the thing that solved the problem miraculously was the dog. And
Really?
I tell this to my students all the time. You have a story problem, put an animal in it, and you won't have a problem anymore. Like, animals have incredible bridging power. So, Alice the Cat's about a cat. This one has a dog. And once the dog came in, I was like, that's it. That's the connective tissue. That's where it all makes sense. The kids are going to put up a play to raise money for a seizure dog. And all of this magical stuff is going to happen as a result. So once the idea was fully formed, then I had to do the work, of like writing a book, which is like, it's still a miracle to me to look at it and be like, what? Here it is.
And who knows? It could be able to be performed in school plays and maybe like off Broadway or maybe
I would love that.
regionally.
I would love that. I think both of these books would make incredible films. I think Alice the Cat would make an incredible animated film, especially looking like Miyazaki film.
Oh
The
yeah,
protagonist in that book is a big fan of Spirited Away, so she talks about that a lot. And I think this one would be an incredible episodic. It would be a great Netflix show. I mean, listen, Stranger Things is done. We need something to replace it. It's this. It's totally this.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm all about watching stories evolve and go into different mediums and forms. And I remember recently we watched Station 11. I read the book. A friend of mine told me that I needed to read the book. I hadn't read it when it came out, which was about 10 years ago, but I read it and I loved it so much. And then we watched the show, and they really took a lot of license. They worked with the author, but they reimagined it in a lot of ways where the foundation or the framework of the novel was there, but how they told the story visually was really, really different. And I know a lot of people weren't cool with it, but I thought it was cool that they all collaborated. The writer who told one version of the story and the filmmakers who wanted to tell a different version. They converged in the middle and made something that I thought was really profound, really powerful.
And you said it the best. Not a lot of people do that. We don't see the authors. Like, for example, I know with J.K. Rowling and Wizarding World, there's a lot of stuff going on with Harry Potter, and then of course you have J.R.R. Tol. Not, I mean, the Game of Thrones and everything going on.
Yeah,
That basically like they want to make sure that they honor George R. R. Martin's work.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that a lot. So that's like we don't get a lot of creative collaboration like that.
yeah. I think it's cool if you come on board in whatever way you want to as an author. Um, but you have to be careful how hands-on you are because I think it can get tricky. The collaborative thing can get a little bit tricky. Um, you
Look
know,
at what happened with Walt Disney and P.L. Travers with Mary Poppins.
oh yeah, wasn't that a great film?
I
Yeah,
gotta say that Tom Hanks should have won an Oscar, and also Emma Thompson should have won an Oscar.
it's such a beautiful film, and I think a really important story. I don't think a lot of people knew what the foundation of Mary Poppins really was. And it really makes you think about why authors are writing what they write and how stories can sometimes get reimagined and the original seed or the original spark for it gets reinterpreted. Um, Again, it's like a tree, it branches out. Different things happen, different people receive it in different ways. But that was a really powerful story. Colin Farrell also was really, really incredible in that, really powerful.
He definitely was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so last question, are you ready?
What's that? Yes.
Last question, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Alrighty, where can my audience find your work? And also, if you're on social media, where can it connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram and my handle is OctoSpark, which has a whole story behind it, but I won't go into it here. It'll take too long. But I'm on Instagram and I have a website, timcummings.inc, but not INC, INK, as in like an octopus, or writing ink. And I'm pretty active on both. My website has all the information, the books, and where you can get them. And Instagram has, a nice mixture of professional stuff, but also personal stuff. My life here in Los Angeles with my dog and my husband and my friends, and life lived here in this crazy, crazy city of LA. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, everybody, have a great one. Goodbye.
Everyone, thank you.